Hello and welcome, guys. Thank you for joining me again for another night of Facebook Live. I also want to recognize those that catch me on the replay from YouTube and or SoundCloud. It is indeed a blessing to be here with you tonight. I am your host, Tricia Bray Smith, author, educator, and public speaker. Tonight we're going to talk about what it looks like. We're going to talk from the topic, what it looks like. And I think that this topic is very necessary, especially after coming off of last night from me telling you that I am putting us all in a time out, time out to sit and reflect and to think about those things that we do. And those behaviors that we show time and time again, and the ups and downs and the instabilities and just so much that goes on in our life. We're just all over the place. I think that we all just needed time to just sit in time out for a few minutes and just breathe and take it all in and really begin to examine ourselves, because where we get when we're so consumed with so much and compiling it and we're unstable in our thoughts, we're unstable in our behaviors, we're unstable in our actions and just everything, we get frustrated. And so it was time to sit in that space and do a inventory on ourselves, because what we find a lot of times is that when we're in a place of chaos, 9 times out of 10, it's us. We are the defining factor in where the real issue lies. So it's time to take a look at ourselves and time to see where we really make our commitments and where we're really just all over the place and sitting in mediocrity. So I hope that time of reflection resonated with you, and that you could really see yourself in the areas to where you may have been doing good in some places, but also recognizing those areas in your life that you haven't really given all that you have, and to give all 100% commitment to what it is that you say that you're going to commit to. Hello, Diane. How are you tonight, honey? It's good to have you here. I saw that you caught the replay a couple times, so I'm glad you were able to find me here tonight. I was talking last night or yesterday, last couple days, to some folks, and they were saying that my lives didn't show up on your timeline. So if that is the case for you guys, if you would like and subscribe to our YouTube channel or to SoundCloud, if you're one that catch the audio, if you'd like and subscribe to that, I do upload all the content from our lives to those platforms so that you guys can catch it at your convenience. So I appreciate you being here, Diane. Tonight we're talking about what it looks like. And I think it's necessary that we talk about what things look like from our perspective. And you've heard me say so many times that the only problem with us reading the Bible, or with us hearing content, or with us engaging in conversations, is that all of those things are filtered through our mindsets and through our perceptions. So this is why I have to remind us, guys, that everything is not always as it seems. Everything that we see through these eyes and perceive it to be is not always the way it is. And sometimes these minds can be so tricky. Our eyes see one thing and then we automatically perceive it to be what we think it is based upon our experiences. And so tonight I just want to remind us that everything we see with these eyes, or everything we think we hear with these ears, or everything we think in these thoughts in these minds of ours is not always as it seems. Because when we have experiences of hurt and rejection and betrayal, when something comes along to trigger that, or when something familiar presents itself, we automatically think in our minds that this is going to be the outcome again. And so what we do, we begin, hey Karen, how are you, hon? Glad you're here tonight. So what we tend to do at that point is to make an automatic perception without even really taking in and absorbing the whole message. I was having a conversation today with my grandfather, and I really wasn't listening to what he said, because when he began to talk, I began to automatically assume that I already knew what he was saying without even listening and letting him finish his statement. And so I realized that this is something that I do often. Oftentimes when I'm having a conversation with people, or when I see something, instead of listening and following through and letting that communication complete itself in its fullness, I know so much that I feel like I just know everything. And so I do not listen. I am not a good listener. And so what that does is it breaks down my ability to effectively communicate. And I know that I'm not the only one. I know that many of us, we're like that because we've heard things over and over again, or we assume things based upon the experiences that we have. How many of you, when your spouse want to sit down and have a conversation with you, you automatically, once he gets to talking, you automatically know where the conversation is going, and you just kind of tune it out and just kind of give a gesture every now and then, not really listening to the content that they're trying to communicate with us. So we miss a lot of the opportunities to really build those skills and to really see the perspective or the perception of the other person. And I am guilty. I am not a listener. I am not an effective listener. And I can't say that I am. If I told you that, I would really be telling a lie. Now, it may seem like I listen, and it's because the messages, I listen to them only to a certain point, and then, I just make my own opinion, or I already predetermine what my response is going to be. But guys, we have to realize that everything is not as we see it. Everything isn't always the way that we think it is. Even with our kids, I think that's why sometimes our kids are reluctant to come and talk to us and really let us and allow us into their world. It's because, they're afraid that we're going to judge. They're afraid that we're going to manipulate. They're afraid that we can't always understand what they are going through. And we know sometimes that we put on this parent image to the point to where sometimes when our kids look at us, they can't see us as a person. They only see their parents. We haven't allowed ourselves to really be transparent with our children. And so when they're going through stuff, all they can see is the parent. They see us as perfect, or they see us as not ever going through some of the things that they're going through or that they're experiencing. And so they don't know how to come and talk to us. But guys, I'm just here. Hey, Keisha, how are you, baby? I'm just here to let you know that everything is not always as it seems. Think of the one or two person that you look up to. Think of someone that you look up to. Think of someone that you admire. And think of your perception of that person. A lot of times when we see people that we admire, we do not look at them as if they're flawed. We see them as some kind of perfect type of person. We see that they live in this perfect world and that they have everything that they need and they don't have any issues. Well, this is where we're wrong. Did you know that even people that are in the celebrity realm, those that everybody know who they are, and even though they get in front of the camera and there's a particular image that they portray, and we just take and we gravitate, good, Keisha, we take and we gravitate toward that, they appear to be one way. But guys, we know that if we really look at it, the same issues that you and I have with self-image and self-perception and struggling with issues in the families and dysfunctions, all that, those people, regardless of where they are, whatever stage they stand on, whatever platform they have, we all still share issues and challenges in life. I don't know anyone that is perfect. And many of us esteem our leaders in such a manner. We think that because they come out and they portray a certain way, that there are no issues in their marriages and in their families. And many of us esteem our co-workers that way, that they're perfect and they don't have issues. Many of us esteem our friends that way. Many of us esteem our counterparts that way. Business partners. We think this. This is the perception that we have in our mind, and we fool ourselves. And what that does as a result, when we portray other people in a way that we can't even see ourselves, it begins to stir up jealousy. It begins to stir up envy. It begins to stir up malice. It begins to stir up all of our insecurities. So guys, as we take the time to just really sit in looking at ourselves and really taking in our images and really taking in our insecurities and where we lack and where we do well, and taking all that and really looking at it, things are not always as they seem. So what you perceive to be work of the enemy could very well be wrapped in your blessing. Things that you think that have come to throw you a curveball and strike you out the game could be your biggest blessing ever. It's all a matter of perception. And you know where we defeat ourselves? When we perceive these things in a negative content, we defeat ourselves in our minds. Because when we think that something has come to mess up our plan and it's not going our way, and when we perceive it as that and then we speak it out of our mouth, we're defeating ourselves. We speak our own doom. We create. because these minds can think anything because we put so much of anything in it. Think about the things you have consumed in your mind today. Think about the conversations you've had. Think about the things that you've seen. They produce thoughts and experiences. But did you know that everything that you thought you saw wasn't what you saw? Everything you thought you heard wasn't what you heard? And this is the reality of it all. And a lot of times when we're having conversations, it's because we heard it so much, it's become so ingrained and so repetitious in our mind, we know it before the people can even get it out of their mouths. You don't believe me? Well, think about it. Think about it. Think about your religious organizations. How when the preacher gets up to preach his sermon and they get them sayings that they repeat week after week after week. We already know what they're going to say. Or so we think we do. Think about the deacons that get up to pray those long Sunday morning prayers every Sunday morning. We know their prayers better than they do because it's repeated week after week after week. Right? We know when Sister So-and-so is getting ready to get up and do her dance. We know when Sister So-and-so getting ready to get up and do her shout. We know when things in the building is getting ready to get stirred up. It has been ingrained in our thoughts. And for some of us, the conversations we have, especially with our spouse, because we know a lot of times that, the conversations are really just repetitious with them. I mean, just to be in the same room is enough for them. And the conversation about their day, how it was, and things like that. And we're not even really listening. And then it ain't like they've taken a whole lot of our time. 5 or 10 minutes? You mean to tell me I can't give them 5 or 10 minutes to have a conversation? And so what if I heard the conversation before? So what if I heard the conversation 1,000,000 times? But it's my perception that hinders me from embracing the moments and embracing the times and embracing the intimacy of the place and the opportunities that we have. I wonder what it would be like if I really knew how to listen, if I really engaged and showed interest with the people that I'm around. What difference would that make? Would it not make a difference to you if you talked or that you had a conversation with somebody and they really was interested and was really tuned in to what you had to say for that moment? And that you can really perceive the message that they're trying or intended for you to hear. Instead of just forming our own opinion about what it is they're saying and just ready to respond without really taking in what is really being said. So guys, I just encourage us tonight to really think about the things that we're getting frustrated with. Really think about the things that we're reading or the things that we're looking at or the things that we're hearing that's getting us upset because we really didn't see it or hear it or perceive it the way that it was intended to be. So that's something to really think about, especially in times like this when we have outside issues that we cannot control that continues to impact our minds and is added up on top of all the things that we already have going on. So if my ability to not listen well was already an issue for me, now with the impact of COVID and the impact of worrying about going back to a job and getting exposed and things like that, that further enhances my inability to really listen and hone in and perceive things the way people may have intended for me to really perceive. And it's all because there's a disconnect, all because there's miscommunication, because I perceived it my way based upon my experiences. So guys, let's not get frustrated with one another. Let's really consider ourselves in all things, and let's really go to work on us. Okay? Everything is not always as it seems. And I know if so many of you are like me, you think that you're always the one that's in the right. And I'm here to tell you that regardless of how much I think I know or how right I think I am not always right. We just have to be willing to address our issues and work on us so that we're better. And that as I become better, then maybe my skills for listening can enhance and become better. And I can perceive things the way people have intended for me to perceive it, rather than automatically thinking I already know how to respond or what they're getting ready to say. Right, guys? It's been good talking with you tonight. I didn't want to hold you long. I hope that something here has been said to encourage you so that we take ourselves into consideration and understand that just because something looks like something doesn't necessarily mean that we saw it the right way. It's not always the way we see it. It's not always the way we perceive it. So let's be open. Let's be open with one another. Let's communicate our needs to one another. And let's begin to continue to grow that relationship of support and encouragement for one another. You never know who needs it, guys. I appreciate you guys joining me tonight. I am your host, Tricia Bray Smith, author, educator, and public speaker. I'll see you here again, same time tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Have a good night, everybody.